Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Dr. Laura Gabayan. She is a physician, scientist, researcher, and author. Uh, she has scientifically defined wisdom in her book Common Wisdom. She interviewed 60 wise individuals across North America and arrived at 8 elements of wisdom. And we'll be talking about that in this conversation. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. You are welcome to the show. You are welcome to India in this online form, Laura. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk about. As I said, we'll be talking about the 8 elements of wisdom. But before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, Laura, so that, and in that journey, I want to understand why did you take up this project to write this book?
So I'm a Persian Kurd, and I always thought I had to work hard in everything I did. So I went to medical school, I did emergency medicine, and then I did more training and research. And I published a lot of papers in academia. And then my body started to fall apart. And I realized, wait a second, physicians only think about what they know, what diagnoses they learn. They don't think outside the box. The people who do are the wise. And so then I looked into wisdom and I realized, wait a second, wisdom is so important, but we really don't know what it is. So I used my scientific skills to study wisdom, and I interviewed 60 wise people across across North America. And Common Wisdom is the book, and common because these people were common, right? They're not famous. And the 8 elements were the common elements they all shared.
Right, right. So I want to understand first, before I come to the 8 elements, what is this wisdom as per you? And who is a wise person? How did you decide on 60 wise people without
So,
confirming what wisdom is all about?
so as a scientist, you can't be involved in the research. So I just told people, what people do you know that are wise? And then once I interviewed them, I told them if they knew someone that was wise, and they kept going. And these people did not know each other. I did not know them. And it's very interesting because around 20 people, I heard a lot of the same things. But being the researcher that I am, I wasn't satisfied. So I kept going and going until 60.
Right,
And the 8 elements I'll tell you are resilience, kindness, positivity, spirituality, humility, tolerance, creativity, and curiosity.
creativity and
And
curiosity.
curiosity. It's funny because, I did do a lot of work learning about it. The only thing of all of those that I saw over and over again was humility. The
Right.
Buddha talks about humility. Everyone mentions humility, but that's not enough. I mean, most of the people I talked to had gone through some horrible life event. So that's why resilience was number one.
Absolutely. So resilience. So I want to understand among all these 8 things, I didn't see about IQ anywhere else that they should have high IQ or anything related with that. Why?
Interesting because people have asked, is intelligence or, education related to wisdom? I'm like, think about yourself. Think about the people you know. There are people who have all these degrees, but yet may not be making good decisions. They may not live a good life. They may not be wise. And the reverse is the case too. You may know people who don't have a lot of degrees, but they make good decisions. and they are wise. So the two don't go hand in hand.
Right. So I'm intrigued by this because it means the way we have defined intelligence and wisdom in today's time, it means that we have gone the wrong path. A lot of people who do not have any of this, but they seem to be having such great marks, great into business schools, are into leadership positions, and that is why. Is that the cause of all the problems that we are having in our society in each sphere of life?
I think the problem that we're having in our society is the internet, it's social media. Is that you decide you want something and it gives you more of that. One thing I notice in these people I talk to is, they're not set on a certain condition, point of view, or anything. They're open. They're very open minded. They're tolerant. They are open to ideas. They're open to lots of other thoughts. And that's not what we're getting these days with social media and the internet. That's the problem. And it's funny because in my humility chapter, I definitely talk about how humility is a secret ingredient for leadership. And so I think that, for when I think about leadership, having all eight would be a great leader. A great leader would have all eight if they're kind, they're positive, they're resilient, like all of those things. If they have all eight elements.
Right, right, Dr. Laura. So if you look at it from that perspective in today's time, a lot of people will fall short of so many things. You see, resilience. A lot of leaders do not have that resilience. Humility, forget humility in today's time, especially from people who are in positions. Many of them, you see, don't talk about humility. They say, fake it till you make it, and then you make it, and then you forget everything else. You see the resumes, fudging in resumes. People are putting up wrong information, even in CEO level jobs they are doing it. So where is that? And if you look at the kindness part, the whole great resignation and the quiet quitting, we are forget about just the workplaces. Even day-to-day life, kindness is missing, tolerance is missing. There is this road rage and everything, you see. And
Well,
if you talk about curiosity, the biggest curious person, you go on chat GPT and all. And if you talk of creativity, then a lot of this artificial intelligence is taking over your creativity. So a wise man will be difficult to find moving forward.
Well, first of all, I agree that finding wisdom is not easy. When I wrote the book, I had two editors, both, were like, they added that even if we had 6,000 wise individuals, we would have the same results. I'm like, you're never, ever gonna find 6,000 wise individuals. I was lucky to find 60. And my answer to that, we're lacking different things. I agree with you. That's why I broke it down. And you can look at the eight and say to yourself, you know what? I'm good at this, but I'm not good at that. Or I really, I need to focus on this. So that by breaking it down, it kind of makes it more tangible. It makes it more realistic. Like I can really work on this. And no, it's not, it's not one size fits all. It's not one whole big idea. It's many different parts. And in many ways, I feel like the bigger person, it does not need to be unkind, does not need to be, proud and not humble. So someone who feels good and feels big doesn't need all those things.
Right, right, Dr. Laura. So I want to understand about these elements. One is that which element surprised you the most? I want to
The
understand
one,
that first.
first of all, as a researcher, you go into all studies having no idea what you're going to find. And I had no idea. And the one that was the most surprising was kindness. And the
Which
reason being, I come from the Middle East. And in the Middle East, not only did my parents not talk about it, but it's just not something talked about. It's not something that is respected. It's not something, because people who are viewed as kind are viewed as weak and not strong. And so in the Middle East, it's kind of viewed in the opposite direction of it's not a quality you want. But if you think about it, if someone is kind, they can still be firm, they can still get the job done, but they can do it in a kind way. And that's the one that really surprised me the most.
Right, right. So kindness is not a weakness, it is in fact a strength.
It is, and I did not realize that. And it's funny because we asked a lot of people different questions as to what's important to them. If you look at the 10 questions I asked them, and kindness was something that came up a lot.
Right. So how should people view as kindness in today's time? Is it being kind to everyone else? And nowadays you see, Dr. Laura, people are nowadays talking about as we forget about kindness for others, we are talking about self-care, which is important, and many a times become self-care has become a focus in that. How do you see see self-care vis-a-vis kindness for others?
So kindness, I feel like, has three different components. You have global kindness, like kindness to mankind. We had people who had nonprofit organizations, they volunteered, they did things on a bigger level. And then we also had people who were kind to people. People who, were helping in negotiations. They were just kind in the way, the friends they wanted, the relationships, and the way they connected. And then we have kindness to yourself. And that's where the self-care comes in. Being kind to yourself. It's saying to yourself, you know what? I deserve this. And by being kind to me, I can be kind to others. So self-care actually was, some people actually put it on their calendar. Like, this is my time for me. And nothing will go into that time. And they were so they protected it with so much, and it was so important to them.
Right, right, Dr. Laura. So let me ask you about another element which was most difficult to describe or put into context, and why?
So, so the way it works, I had an editor, and I would write the different chapters, and I would send to him. He would send to me. We'd go back and forth. The one that I started off, and I just couldn't do it, was spirituality. And because, as a physician and a scientist, I always thought, you only measure what you can see. If you can't see it, it doesn't exist. And so I think the whole spirituality thing does not make sense to me initially. I have since changed, and I have realized that obviously I feel like there's not only something bigger, but that something bigger controls a lot of your life, and you don't have anything to do with it. And so that chapter, so I initially couldn't do it. And then at the end, I went back to it and I wrote it again. So that was the hardest chapter.
Right, right. Now I want to understand, who is this book for? And do you think the importance of this book has just come, or it has gone by because people are losing all these qualities?
Well, I think that this book is for everyone. It's like a good friend, it's like a mentor that will be there for you. And that's why I have two different dates. You're going to change in life. Who you are now and who you are in 10 years is a different person. So it's for everyone. I made it so simple that someone in middle school, like 10 and above, can read it, because that's my intention. I want people to read it and feel like, wow, these are the 8 elements that I want to pursue in life. And yes, when someone is in middle school, high school, they have all these other thoughts. But I really want people to be like, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. Focus on this. So it's for everyone. I think, and I also think a leader should definitely look at this. I also feel like someone who is older would appreciate it because they've gone through life and they may look at things and be like, wow, oh yeah, that's what I see. And you said this time has come and gone. Well, it just got published. So do I think that it'll take off? Of course. I definitely think it's going to do really like who would ever not want to know what idea of wisdom in a scientific way? Someone once asked me, do you have a mentor for this? Have you had a mentor? I'm like, no, of course not. Nobody in medicine or science believes in this. You can't have the combination. I have pursued, I have a history and I pursued this, so I brought them together, but that does not exist.
Right, right, Dr. Laura. So people generally talk about common sense. You have called this book Common Wisdom. How would you put common sense versus common wisdom? Is it the same thing or different thing?
I feel like having common sense goes into common wisdom. When you read the 8 elements, you'll feel like, oh yeah, that makes sense. The reason I used the name common wisdom was because these were common people. 60 people were common, they were not famous. And I also found the 8 common elements that they all shared. So common was a big one. And it is. I think common sense goes into all of it.
Right. Now, Dr. Laura, if you had not put common people as your as the one you ever interviewed, if you had put another set of people, say with high IQ and all that stuff, do you think the results would be starkly different or somewhere the same?
Well, as a scientist, I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't choose who is in the group I interview. You can't do that. You can't decide you want to just talk to them. And I definitely feel like the results will be different. But also knowing who I am, I believe that you should give everyone a voice, especially people who may not have a voice, and especially random person in the middle of nowhere that someone thinks is common but has good ideas. So I would not do that. I would never talk to someone just based on other things. I would talk to them based on, okay, all these people recommended them.
Right, right, Dr. Laura. One thing I wanted to understand is that in earlier days, the wise used to help protect the tribe. So their focus was on survival. And then, as they say, it's always about the survival of the fittest. In today's time, if we use all these things that you are having in this, and the way our society is moving, do you think people following these all elements will be able to survive in the way we woven our society, which was the earlier the biggest wisdom, or is it that they will face a very difficult time? How do you look at the old wisdom and the wisdom derived today?
It's funny because I'm sure it was similar in that the wise had this sense of peace, this sense of being content. I get it. The world seems like it's falling apart. So much is going on. And I'm sure in the olden days, there were so many things that they had to tackle. Running water, things that we take for granted. But at the end of the day, they had the sense of, you know what? It's not worth it for me to get upset. It's okay. It'll be okay. And so in that regard, I feel like they're similar because they're going to have that piece about them now and they had that piece about them back then.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you with this word called peace, Dr. Laura, because nowadays I hardly see people talking about peace. They talk about happiness, they talk about other things, but not of peace. I think more discussions, if we focus or we keep the focus of our lives as peace, then that would speak, much for us. It will help us walk more positively towards our goals. I guess more and more peace, this word peace should come into our discussion. That's what I feel.
I agree, and I think one problem I had, I did not know wisdom was, and in writing this book, I mean, my first chapter is what is wisdom, and a lot of it was based on all these prior religions and all these thoughts of what wisdom has been. And I think wisdom is a pseudonym for having contentment, having a meaningful life, being at peace, being calm, and knowing that things will work out. So I think it's an idea more than anything.
Absolutely. There is so much to learn from you, Dr. Laura, from your book. So I'm sure a lot of people would like to understand more about the book, more about you. So, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
So I wrote Common Wisdom, and it's on Amazon now. LauraGabayan.com is my website, and that talks about me. And I also have a second website. That's the Wisdom Research Project.com. I used that second website initially to get the 60 people to tell about the project, and now it's more talking about what we did in the book. But both, I think LauraGabayan.com or the Wisdom Research Project.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so
Thank
much indeed for
Thank
joining
you.
us.